Welcome back to Fast Market. I'm your host, Tom White, along with my co-host, Mr. Kevin Hinks. But let's bring in our next guest, and that's going to be Mr. Andy Swan. He's a co-founder of LikeFolio.com. He's joining us to discuss a name that's been in the headlines repeatedly over the last few weeks, and that's Facebook. Andy, thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Good topic.
Yeah, it is. It's a pertinent topic at that. We've got earnings after the close. When you guys look at your data at LikeFolio, it's, you know, with just the headlines that are out there, the whistleblowers across the board, this business that's going to probably be more regulated as we continue throughout this year and into next year. It seems like they're unloved on both sides of the aisle, and also unloved by a lot of the influencers that are young, so the younger community getting off Facebook. A little bit on Instagram, but what's your data here showing us at LikeFolio for Facebook?
Yeah, I mean, other than the fact that you've got a social media company that loves to censor its users, that is, you know, internally talking about how its own products are bad for teenagers and yet promotes them to them. It's bad for users in general, and that prioritizes polarizing content. You know, what's not to love about Facebook and Instagram? It's you know, there's a huge distribution network. They have the whole social world mapped completely to a T. But what we're seeing at LikeFolio is very concerning. We think long term for Facebook shareholders. It's the same thing that took Snapchat down last week, and that is the Apple iOS privacy update and how that has impacted the efficacy of the advertisements that Facebook shows to its users. And you can see from this chart, this is the number of people talking about actually purchasing things or discovering a new brand because of what they see on Facebook and Instagram. And what's really concerning there is the last portion of that chart where things are really headed lower. And a lot of that, we think, is due to the iOS privacy update, which essentially, in not so many words, so this is Andy Swan's take, not necessarily Facebook or Apple's take, but you know, essentially limits how much Facebook and Instagram can spy on its users, how much it can learn about its users' behaviors, and therefore makes the advertisements that it's able to offer to large brands less effective and less targeted, and therefore less valuable. And so we think that is a concern for Facebook going forward. You know, users have other reasons to be upset with Facebook. The sentiment for the company, the consumer happiness for Facebook and all of its platforms is lower than all of its peers, down 7% year over year. And so right now we just see Facebook with a really, really big uphill battle, both from a regulatory perspective, from a value to big brands and advertisers perspective, and just the value that it's delivering to its user base. You know, Facebook is now in, you know, kind of the fifth or sixth inning of its existence. It feels like the fast growth days are over, and now it has to maintain market share, and that's becoming tougher and tougher to do.
All right, Andy, we have to have a discussion now about this, because from a trading perspective, right? I read an article that mentioned the Facebook papers. 17 U.S. news outlets have written articles about Facebook. 17. I didn't even know there was 17 U.S. outlets for data like this. And this is an attack on this company. They have no friends. It's amazing. How is it possible for them to anger everybody 100%? Yet, though they are the most loved to be bashed company that I've ever witnessed in my adult trading career, no one leaves. The numbers still go up and people still visit their site. And their age demographic, you can make 35 to 50, 45 to 50, older, right? Parents' age, my age. They don't seem to leave because the young kids that may find politics and some of the main topics on Facebook boring, they're not on there, right? They're on 13 to 24 or on Snap, and that middle demographic is on Instagram. Facebook's got that older demographic that they use, and how about this? They've spent $13 billion and 40,000 employees, and still people think it's not enough. So all these stories, everything, the whistleblower, everything that they have, the one thing that they don't talk about is how much money, how profitable Facebook is. And this advertising thing is an issue. Absolutely. That's why all these stocks have sold off. But Andy, my question to you is, isn't this just a big trading event for Facebook? Isn't this something that's going to go away over time? As long as the viewers are there, the active users, the advertisers aren't going away. They may adjust and make adjustments, but that's what great companies do. They make adjustments. So isn't this just a big trading opportunity?
Yeah, it could be. I would say that that the real problem for Facebook, in my mind, long term, that's come to the surface is how much it relies on a single point of distribution in the Apple operating system, and how reliant they are on a good relationship with Apple, and how much Apple could take advantage of that or change the rules overnight and completely upend Facebook's value proposition to its largest clients. And so if Facebook can keep all of the users at once, and it's doing that, you're right. I mean, no one's fleeing Facebook. Facebook is what it is. Instagram is what it is. But if they aren't able to continue to deliver more and more value to advertisers, then revenues have to go down, or at least stop growing at the rate that they were. So I think that's the big concern, is that that kind of realization that Facebook isn't just all powerful on its own. It really needs the partnership that it has with Apple. That seems to be a good partnership, but that Apple is protecting its users in the face of Facebook, and that could be a problem. So I do think it's a trading opportunity, but I also think that going into this earnings event, like our LikeFolio earnings score is officially very neutral for this event. But I would say that just from a headline perspective and what we saw on Snapchat last week, you have to be thinking that the risk on the trade is to the downside rather than to a big upside reaction in the stock, no matter how well the company reports revenues and earnings.
Yeah, and Andy, I think that's the big point here that I think that you and Kevin were hitting on, is the fact that digital advertising and the way that it's done, and the algorithms that they use, the targeting that they can use with the amount of data that they have. One of the big things that makes me curious is, and I'm not sure if you guys are seeing it at LikeFolio, none of the big advertisers are coming out and saying we're not going to advertise on Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp. They're not coming out and saying that. Is that a risk for this company, or have you seen any data points besides the falling sentiment here that that could maybe cloud maybe some of the advertising dollars that they get currently?
Yeah. So if I'm Mark Zuckerberg right now, I'm probably breathing a sigh of relief, because you got hit from all angles, like Kevin said. You saw a 60 Minutes piece coming at you, the headlines, the regulators, everything media-wise that could come at you over the last month has done so, and you haven't seen an abandonment by any of the big brands or companies that really prop up your revenue dollars. But what bothers me is the fact that users are talking less and less about what they bought or what they discovered on Facebook, and that means, by definition, that those ads are less valuable to the advertiser. So the advertiser may not be out there making a squawk about this, or boycotting the company, but you can bet that they're talking to Facebook and saying, look, what we're getting out of your ads is dropping in value. There's no way we can pay you what we were. And so that's Facebook's big challenge right now, and it starts with that user engagement of the ads themselves.
Andy, one last thing, and it's more of theory about Facebook, because when I look at this company and what they're doing, and everyone that's piled on, right? Print media, digital media, television. I mean, every news company hates Facebook. Doesn't it have to do, shouldn't they disclose that by definition, all these companies compete with Facebook for advertisers? So when they bash CNN or Fox or MSNBC or anything, that's their competition. That's why they're jumping on this and try, and not really giving a balanced look at Facebook. And then one last thing, that's your comment on that, please. And then the last thing is the name change basically what Google did going to Alphabet in 2015? Does that have any effect on this stock? Is it any type of a tradable event, a name change?
Yeah, I don't think the name change. I think your analogy with Google and Alphabet is exactly right. I still call it Google. I think we're still going to be calling it Facebook.
Yeah, me too.
For a while. But yeah, you're right on the media. There is a conflict of interest that isn't being disclosed. In fact, I would say there's a conflict of interest on the regulation side as well, because government doesn't like speech that it doesn't control or monitor really well. And so, there's a lot of different angles at this. Facebook is in the crosshairs of a lot of powerful people and a lot of powerful organizations, but it has, like I said before, it has mapped the relationships of pretty much the entire world at this point. It knows who everyone is. It knows what everyone likes. It can deliver really, really relevant ads to everyone. It's just not as relevant, not as targeted as it was 3 months ago before Apple came out with this update. So that's, at least in the short term, maybe midterm, a pretty big concern for the company.
All right, Andy, that's going to wrap up this segment. Thanks for all the data on Facebook. We do have some higher implied volatility, relatively neutral out of LikeFolio today on Facebook, but this could be one of their biggest reports that we're going to see for a while. See what kind of direction, see if we get a name change. Metaverse is going to be in there. So, all right, Andy, thanks so much. Have a great day.